Welcome to Upper Lafayette on the Move. I'm Jan Swift. We're honored to have as today's guest, David Welch, President and CEO of Stone Energy. David, thank you so much for making time to be here. David has served as Upper Lafayette's president. He actually served for the last 2 years. And I thought it'd be a good time with the oil and gas industry going through, some struggles, and also the wonderful things happening in Lafayette in our philanthropic community, to get David on and just talk about what's, the latest happening. So if we can, David, I'd like to start by asking you about Stone Energy and what you're seeing in our region with the oil and gas sector. If you can give us an update.
Sure. Well, Stone Energy is an exploration and production company, and our mission is to go out and find oil and gas and develop it and produce it and sell it to those that need energy. A year or so ago, the price of oil was $100 a barrel, and now, as you probably are aware, it's dropped to roughly 50% of that. And when the price of your product drops, you don't just lose that percentage of the margin, you lose almost all the margin. So if it cost you $50 a barrel to produce it and find it, and then the price drops to 50, there's no margin left. So it's been a very challenging time for a lot of companies. We're fortunate and blessed that we have a strong balance sheet and we're able to weather the storm for quite an extended period of time. We also sold half of our oil forward last year at 90-something dollars a barrel, so we're only feeling half the effects of the low price this year. If it continues another year, we're only 11% hedged in the future next year. So it's trying times in our industry. You've basically have had two major technological revolutions. You had the horizontal drilling and fracturing, which is going on onshore, and then the Gulf of Mexico, deep water is the other technology that's really changed the supply. And the U.S. Is now one of the top oil producers again in the world. In fact, some people were calling it Saudi America instead of just Saudi Arabia. So it's a great thing that we've been able to figure out how to produce all this additional oil. But right now, there's so much of it available, the price has temporarily dropped back.
It's such a paradox that we want to be self-sufficient,
right,
and yet by the increased production, that's somewhat what's led to the glut in the market.
And but it's a self-correcting phenomenon, because someone once said the best cure for low oil or gas prices are low oil and gas prices, because the revenues that we bring in as a company are significantly lower, therefore the amount of capital that we have to redeploy in the business is lower, therefore production is going to be going down in the future. So it corrects itself over time, but it's a cyclical business. We all know that. We're pretty much toward the bottom of the cycle now, or in the near future, but at the same time, it's tough to weather those cycles, even though we know it's going to get better in the future.
Right. I know when you spoke to Upper Lafayette at our January meeting about the industry and the state it was in then, you explained that the big companies, including Stone, are able to weather this storm, but I know some of our smaller producers and the independents probably are not able to weather this.
Well, I wouldn't put Stone in the big company category. However, we do have a pretty good balance sheet, so we're able to go forward for a number of years in a low price environment, which is what we may end up having to do. But yes, it affects everyone, because even giant companies like Shell, Chevron, Exxon, with their revenue being cut, they're typically investing significantly less than they would in the past. And so it's an industry-wide phenomenon. And one thing to be aware of is that every well that's producing right now, within 15 years, will only be able to produce half. So not only do we have to make up the half of the declining resources, but demand is expected to grow a little bit as well, as we go from 6 billion people to 7 or 8 billion people on the globe, and more of them want to use energy. So there will be an increasing demand and a decreasing production. It's just a matter, does that happen late this year, late next year, the year after, or how long does that perpetuate itself?
And you got to have the funds to continue looking for the product.
You have to keep, you have to be very guarded with your capital and spend as little as you can to make sure you can make it through till the time that things get a little bit better.
How long have you been in the oil and gas industry?
Let's see, I got out of college in '98, so that would be 16 years. No, I've been in it probably 45 years.
I knew you were young.
45 years or so.
So you've seen this.
I've seen this cycle so many times, and the issue is sometimes it only lasts a year or two, sometimes it goes for a decade. So
Yeah.
we don't know what we're in for this time.
Right. When I moved here in the 80s, it was middle 80s, and I was doing oil and gas title work at a law firm. And I mean, boy, when 86 rolled around, it was pretty lean. you know,
Right, right. And
for a few
the
years.
80s were a tricky time, and then it recovered a little bit in the 90s, and then right around the turn of the century, 1999, the price of oil actually dropped to $10 a barrel. And it stayed
What?
there for a couple of years, and then it popped back. And then in '08, it dropped from $140 down to $30 a barrel. And this time it dropped from $100 down to $50 a barrel. Actually dropped to 40, but it's around 55 or so right now.
So
we're used to this volatility. It's just the situation that we have to learn to deal with. And
Right.
it's tough on everybody in the industry.
Right. Well, before we move on to the second part I wanted to visit about, why don't you tell me a little bit about Stone Energy's initiatives? I know y'all have really good success with your wellness program and some of the things you do for Stone Energy for your employees and encouraging others in the community to follow suit.
Well, the thing that keeps you going when you're in tough times is the culture that you have in the company. And I think we're blessed with a really good corporate culture. We do try to create a corporate culture of safety and wellness. We're fortunate that we haven't had an accident, a recordable accident in over 2 years, which is pretty amazing. And that would, if you had scratched your finger and had to get stitches, that would be an accident.
Count.
So we've been very fortunate on that side of it. And also on the wellness side, we have a wellness coordinator that works with people. We do a screening every year that's put on by medical people that come in and check people for heart, lungs, all the vital signs that we might that might lead to illness, and try to be a little bit proactive. And so far, we've been able to keep our medical expenses almost flat for 3 or 4 years, which is pretty amazing considering their double-digit growth in terms of medical costs going on right now. We're trying to figure out how to deal with the Affordable Health Care Act, and there are certain penalties we have to pay because our program is a little bit better than that. But all in all, our people are focused on safety, they're focused on wellness, and the best part about our culture really is we have the attitude that we can do anything together. And so we try to be cross-functional and proactive in helping one another.
I remember when we first met, you had your team out there. I was planting trees on the interstate at University and I-10, and you had 30 or 40 people in orange vests, safety vests.
Right, that was the Stone Arbor team.
I was shocked about that.
Those trees are still there, I think.
Yeah, they could look a little better, but that's another story. They need to be maintained. But I was just amazed at the number of people that go out and pitch in for different endeavors.
We have a very generous culture and a very benevolent view of the community. I think that's one of the strong points of our company. If you're in a tough time, if you're not as focused on yourself and focused on others, it helps you get through that as well.
Right, right. So, and I know one last thing on that, your team gets executive coaching. I want to put in a plug for my buddies at Accelerants. I know they come in and with your company and other large companies in the region and look at the team you have in place and I guess work with you as the
They do. They've been working with us for a number of years, and I think they've done a great job. And part of the reason we have a good culture is because of the help that they've given us in terms of feedback to individual executives as well as teams and our senior leaders and our key leaders. So it's a pretty comprehensive development program that we have underway.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. I've gotten coaching from them recently, and they just give you some marching orders. Once they figure you out, it's like, nope, at least for me.
All you have to do is listen.
Oh, I did, and I took their advice. I'm better off for it. So.
Good.
Let's talk about your involvement in the community. I know that's through your position with Stone, but I also know that you have a heart for making things better than you found it. And I don't even know where to start.
Well, I'll start with why I'm engaged with the community in a fairly important way. At least to me, it's important. We've got a great country, and we know that we have tremendous opportunity for people. But increasingly, we're becoming a country of people and jobs that require skills to be able to compete for those jobs. And sadly, we have what I would call a disenfranchised group of our community that's probably 15 to 30% that don't have the skills to feel good about themselves, to go compete for jobs and get good jobs. And so my initial engagement with the community was to try to figure out what can we do that would really help re-enfranchise that group of folks. And I've worked with a number of organizations to help further that end, the United Way is a huge benefit to Acadiana. I don't know how many viewers know this, but our United Way in Acadiana has been chosen one of the top 10 in the world. I mean, that's a pretty amazing fact. It is. And it's because they do such a great job. And I would say 6 or 7 years ago, there was a community forum at the Dome, and people came and they distilled out what did everybody really want for the community. And one of the big things they really wanted was a focus on helping people in crisis, which is what the United Way has always done. Helping people that are in poverty. There are a lot of people in our community that work 1, 2, or 3 jobs, but they're always the ones that are taken advantage of by people that are less ethical than maybe you would like them to be, overcharging for certain products, whether it's services or goods and interest or whatever that might be. So that was the second rampart. And the third one was education. And that's where my passion really ignited. And particularly the more I've learned about education, the more I know that you have to start at the time a child is born or even before they're born. They have to have some stimulation. And unfortunately, a lot of the part of our community is in a situation where there's not a traditional family where there's enough parental guidance and parental support. So the United Way has taken on a lot of that. United Way has a program called a Dolly Parton Imagination Library, where any child born in Acadiana can sign up and get a free book that's age appropriate, delivered to their home once a month, free of charge. And so that really, at least the kids have books to look at and look at pictures, and they can sit down and flip through that, and it's something for the moms to do with them. So that's a really beneficial program. Then there's another program that was invented right here in Lafayette called Do Re Mi ABC that came out of the Acadiana Symphony Orchestra. It's a phenomenal program as well. That program is aimed at preschoolers. And so they come in and play music with these kids for, it's actually designed for 2 hours a week. The pilot programs that have been run were only a half-hour a week, and they've already seen over a 30% improvement in kindergarten readiness. So if you have a book coming in once a month and they have this musical program that really teaches them fine motor skills, you know what they do is little kids have a hard time sitting still. And that's really what they need to know to be able to start school, is to be able to sit still and to have a little bit of discipline around them. And so when the music's playing, they're clacking on their blocks and sticks and everything, going in a circle. And when they stop, they have to sit still and tap softly with their instruments. And so it teaches them fine motor skills, things they don't even realize they're learning, but it has a tremendous impact. And then once they get into the schools, now the United Way has another program that I think will be transformational for Acadiana, and that's called the Leader in Me. The Leader in Me is basically a life skills course. It's based on Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, things like be proactive, start with the end in mind, think win-win, all these habits that if you learn them at an early age, you're going to be a success in life. And so it's in 20 of our schools already. The hope is, and the desire is, and the goal is to get it into all 80 of our schools within the next 5 years. And so those are some of the things that are actually working. And in those Leader in Me classes in schools, they've reported almost a 50% improvement in both verbal and math scores, as well as a 60% reduction in discipline problems. We had a little 8-year-old girl came over to Stone Energy and talked to all of our employees. And I read a statistic where 80% of the public would almost rather die than have to speak in public. And so here's a little 8-year-old talking to 100 professional people, and she just charmed everybody. And it was very clear from hearing her that she was just going to be a dynamite when she got older and when she grew up.
Can you imagine doing that? Like, maybe you could have.
No, I couldn't.
As an 8-year-old.
No.
But even to be asked is quite an accomplishment.
It was. And the other exciting thing was her teacher was there. And to have a teacher get up and just be so enthusiastic about something was really inspirational. So our folks love seeing that. They get to see where their dollars that they're donating to United Way are going, and they see that we have programs in Acadiana that are moving the needle.
Right. You know, with United Way pushing the Leader in Me, it's led for more funding to come up, and I know that for the upcoming school year, there's a local grant called Gear Up Grant. That's a federal grant but administered through our school system, and they're going to put they're putting the Leader in Me, I think, in all the middle schools.
Yeah, that's
and that'll
fantastic.
really help Upper Lafayette schools.
That's
because
really
the teachers,
fantastic.
Yeah, some of the issues are discipline in the classroom. And if they can get even a small percentage of discipline cases to go down, I know that the teachers will benefit. And as a matter of fact, Linda Nance, who's principal at Acadian Middle, was going to retire. She had come out of retirement to run the school, to turn it around, and was about to go back into retirement. And when she saw that the Leader in Me was coming, she decided to stay. She said, if we get this, we can do anything. So it's been a very positive thing, but the United Way was the impetus behind this.
There were, and the great thing about it too is that the Leader in Me Foundation has seen Acadiana as being kind of the first area in the country to be able to take it on as a region. And so they've actually made a deal to cut the cost for each school. I think they cover a third of the cost. And so it's much less expensive than some of these hugely intensive programs that have been government sponsored in the past.
Right,
so
and that'll stick with the kids too. That's a lifelong lesson.
One of the issues that we're facing right now, just a practical issue, is that we have a number of kids that had it in their elementary school and they're graduating and they're going on to the middle school, so they really don't want to go from a Leader in Me elementary to a non-Leader in Me middle school because it's like a step backwards for them. So we're really trying to lay out how can we keep up with those that have started and are really getting the benefit from these programs.
Well, hopefully their schools will be enacting it this fall.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's great news.
So,
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, so anyway, Stone has helped United Way get funding. I know that a lot of people go to your gumbo cook-off at the Cajun Dome, so that's raised.
Let me put in a plug for the gumbo cook-off. It's going to be bigger and better than ever every year.
Yeah.
Last year I think we had over 6,000 people there, and hopefully we'll get up to 10,000 or more. It's almost taken on a festival-like status, and I believe we had 150 different gumbos for people to come in.
It's pretty good
pay
stuff,
one small
too.
price and get to come in and have as much gumbo as you can eat, and their refreshments and music. We have live music, so it's a great time, and it raised almost $250,000 for the United Way last year.
That's incredible, and it's such a family-friendly event. But the gumbo, people are really competitive.
They are.
It's good.
Everybody's proud of their recipe.
Yeah, they are. I got to judge one year, and I knew that the one I tasted was going to win, and it did. It was some seafood concoction that had, like, I don't know what they spent on the gumbo. It had crab and oyster. Good. Oh, it was great. But I thought every booth had they were in there to win.
They were in it to win it.
So you win, you win just by participating, and our community wins.
You can't be in it without being a winner, really. That's true.
Yeah. So tell me what else your local activities. We've got about 6 or 7 minutes. I know you've been involved in other activities here, helped them with the horse farm, as an example.
In bygone years, I worked with the Chamber of Commerce.
Well, yes, that's
trying to help reframe what they were doing a little bit, and now the Chamber is taking off on a tremendous rampart. It's no longer called the Chamber, it's Acadiana One. It's a regional entity, and I can't take any credit for that, but I'm glad to see that on a good path. And lately I also spent some time working on the horse farm, which is going to be a fantastic central park for Lafayette. It'll be available to people throughout the whole region. But we're trying to get the funding together right now. The idea and the hope is to break ground on some improvements to the facility sometime next year. It's already being used in a number of great ways. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful tract of land right in the middle of town. And it's so accessible, so convenient, and it's so beautiful. It's rare to find over 100 acres of contiguous space in one location where people can go and picnic or run or jog or do whatever they want to do. We're planning on putting in a number of improvements, things like a farmer's market, amphitheater, dog park, jogging and running paths, walkways, a grand meadow, biological gardens. So anyway, we're going to have a great facility there in Lafayette. And the idea was to build something that's world-class, because one of the things we learned at the starting point of this is build something that's world-class or don't build it at all. And so it's going to require a bit of funds, but it's going to be worth it when it gets done.
Right. And I know I read, I guess it was in the last week in the paper, about all these different amenities that are going to be built. And they will be charging for some things, and that'll help maintain the property. It's not a big charge for anything, but I know a lot of times we try to take on improvements, and then there's no money budgeted to
Right.
maintain it. And I'm so glad that there's a professional team
Right.
overseeing this, not only the volunteers, but the staff that are
No, that's right. And we've had a
directing this.
professional staff for about 2.5 years now, maybe 3 years. We've hired professional architecture firms, landscape architects. And one of the things that they always tell you is make sure you include an endowment for your sustainability of the park,
Right.
because it wouldn't do any good to build it and then
Then it goes to
have
heck.
it go downhill
Yeah.
as soon as
Right.
you get it open. So
Right.
that's all being factored in. It's going to be a beautiful place. One of the things we did is we went over and spent a day with Ron Foreman, who runs the Audubon Park in New Orleans, which is a world-class zoo. It's a phenomenal park, and we got a lot of tips from Ron about things to do. And one of the things that he said was that, you know, when they were building Audubon Park, the residents that lined the park were so against it. They lined the property. They were dead set against it. And now they're so in favor of it because it only beautified and it maintained the value of their property. It really made it a very special tract of land. I mean, how many people have the opportunity to have their backyard open up on a major, major beautiful park? And so this is going to be a fabulous place.
I have met some people that are concerned because they just don't know. It's like, you know, that uncertainty.
Sure.
But I really see it just increasing the value of their homes. And once it's open, like you say, what an asset
Yeah,
right
I
by
think
your
it's
house.
going to be phenomenal.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see. Time will tell.
I've walked it a few times. You can get there from Red's even, from his parking lot. And it's a good little hike.
It is.
I didn't realize how big it was.
It's pretty sizable. It's over 100 acres, which
But it's
is
just
amazing.
hard to picture it with what all they're going to do. It's just going to be, I'm really looking forward to it and want to see it thrive and grow. So, well, is there anything else that we should have gotten in? I just wanted to talk about anything important to you, your volunteer
No,
work.
just the only thing I can say is that when you do any kind of volunteer work, it really makes you feel good, kind of on a personal level. The community gets helped in certain ways, but it really does more good for the individual that's doing the helping. So I just encourage anybody and everybody to go out there and do something in our community. Even if it's just picking up litter when you see litter around. We have a famous university president that used to go on a walk every day,
He
probably
still does.
every walk, and just pick up litter. And so everything that's done with a positive bent helps our community and makes it a special place.
I want to thank you for the 2 years you served as our president. You brought in, I think we had great people in place, and your management skills just lifted us to another level. I mean, we really were able to focus, and we had Accelerant come in and help with a focus session, but we were trying to be so many things to so many people. And I've learned we're much more successful focusing on what we do, which is education, you know, economic development, beautifying our community, and member services.
Infrastructure, right.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, that's enough for one group.
It is.
But it's hard when
It's
you're.
a lot for one
It
group.
is, I know, but it's hard when you're one small group to not think, you know, we wanted to do everything. And people call us for so many issues that they care about in Upper Lafayette Parish. But I think your firm leadership and generosity towards our foundation has really lifted us to a different level.
Well, thank you. It was a pleasure to serve on your board and to still serve on your board.
Yeah, we're not letting you out. So.
It's a great organization. It was founded by some very, very thoughtful and forward-thinking community leaders, and now the board that's running it's doing a great job, and you and your staff do a fantastic job as well, Jan. You do a lot with a little, which is what we need in our state right now. You know, the problems that we're facing as a state, we need some folks leading there that can do a lot of things with a little bit of resource. So good luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to thank you for coming today and all the time you spend with us. And I'd like to also thank you for watching our show today. I've been a little challenged with a sore throat. I hope you could hear this all right. And thank you for always watching our show, which appears on the second and fourth Thursday of each month, 8:30 p.m. on AOC 2. You can also watch this show and all of our shows at our website, UpperLafayette.com. On behalf of Upper Lafayette Economic Development Foundation, I'm Jan Swift with another episode of Upper Lafayette on the Move. Thank you.